Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wally Rauder. I'm coming to you live from the city of Singapore. Welcome to BizTalk 43. Today, we're talking about effective HR management fundamentals in business. I guess we all know what HR means. HR is the science of people. HR is the art of managing people. Human resources is one of the most fundamental elements of any business. As Steve Jobs, the former CEO of Apple, has once said, without our people, there is nothing to drive our business. It is our people that make the business click. It is our people that make our bank account increase its zeros on a regular basis. It's nothing to do with management. It's nothing to do with you being a millionaire starting a company. A company without people is basically no company whatsoever. A company without people, whether they work online or work physically in your office, is what produces, or they are the vibe or the energy of the company. Today, more than ever, we say that our people are a company's most valuable asset. Forget the furniture, forget the machinery, forget the brand, forget the product, forget the service. The people that run the company, the people that work for you are your most valuable asset. Because no matter how good your product or your invention is, no matter how good your service is, no matter how cheap it is, if you don't have the right people to sell, distribute, or deliver the service you're selling, your product will not move. So I repeat, today more than ever, a company's people, our people, the people of the business, the people that work for the business are a business's most valuable asset. Forget furniture, forget buildings, forget trucks, forget anything. Your people are your most valuable asset. Because if you have trucks and machinery and no people, those trucks and those machines will not operate, and therefore they're useless because they will not produce the income that you need to produce to pay for them. What is human resources? Again, it's a science of people. How do we manage people? So what I want to do today is talk to you about some of the fundamental requirements of running human resources in a business. And they not only pertain to hiring people and firing people, they pertain to a lot more than that. Can anybody else here tell me what other areas of HR can affect the business and the people that work for it? Who can answer my question? Okay, I have one hand up. Let's go to the hand that's up. Hi, I believe your name is Read Me Note. Are you there? Would you like to talk to me, Read Me Note? I've unmuted your microphone. Go ahead. Speak up. Would you like to talk to me? I can't hear you, Read Me. There's no voice. Would you like to speak to me or not? No? Okay, fine. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, does anybody here know what the difference? And Read Me Note, you need to change your name to your real name. Otherwise, you will get no certificate. There will be no certificate issued to Read Me Note 10TSG. You will get no certificate. Please change your name to the name on your passport or national identity card. Otherwise, you will not get a certificate. Could my co-host please instruct Miss Read Me how to fix her name? Thank you. All right, so let's talk about it. What are the principles of human resources that drive an organization? Can anyone share those with me? Who knows? Let's go around and see who knows. Okay, let's start with the gentleman here with the shirt. Mr. Ayuba John, can you unmute your microphone, mate? Hi, how are you? Are you there? Unmute your microphone. Hello, can you unmute your microphone, Ayuba John? Go ahead. Unmute your microphone. Are you there, sir? Albert John, can you unmute your microphone? I can't hear you. You need to unmute your microphone. Can everybody hear me? Can you wave your hands if you can hear me? Great. You need to unmute your microphone, Albert John. I can't hear a word you're saying. Your microphone is muted. No, your microphone is muted. I cannot hear you, sir. I'll come back to you. Thank you. All right. Does anybody else have a working microphone that wants to talk to me? Melissa Aileen, where are you? Melissa, would you like to answer my question? Good evening, ma'am. Can you unmute your microphone? Hello, Melissa, unmute your microphone. Are you there, Melissa? Would you like to unmute your microphone? Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. My co-host, can you hear me? Is my voice clear? All right, I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, that's fine. All right, Melissa, I've tried to unmute you, but you're not responding. Please, ma'am, if you're participating in the class, focus on me, not talking to someone else. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, would anybody else here like to answer my question? Who would like to answer my question? Okay, what about, let's talk to Iro. Iro, can you answer my question? Iro Agosa. Hi, Iro, how are you today? Can you unmute your microphone? Hi, Iro, how are you?
Yes, fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Tell me, what are the most important elements of human resources that you know of or you practice in your business? Go ahead.
Okay. One of the resources I need to employ to my business, human resources is there. Why there must be a raw resource, raw materials for the productivity of my business. So human resources, raw materials, and financial resources.
Absolutely.
For successful business. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm more interested in what elements of the HR practice you practice in your company. HR is not just about hiring and firing people, right? You know that. So there's different elements of HR that have to be in place in a company to make people want to work for you. Can you tell me what they are?
Hello?
Yeah. Can you tell me what are the elements of HR that you need to practice? Go ahead.
I'm not clear. I'm not clear. Please make it more clearer for me.
All right. It's okay. Aro, you told me that a company needs raw materials and human resource and financial resource. That's very good.
Yeah.
But I want you now to focus on human resource itself. When you employ people, what are some of the core areas of HR you must practice for those people to stay wanting to work for your company?
Okay. Some of those areas that need to practice is there must be a time management, and also communication management.
Okay, that's good. You're on the right track, Iro, but I'm looking for more specific answers. Let me go through and introduce you to some concepts, because what you're talking about, communication management, etc., they're competencies or skills. They're not actually elements of HR practice. So let us talk about HR practice today, and hopefully at the end of the session, I'll ask you the same question again, and you can answer me in detail. All right, mate? Good on you. Well, thanks for trying, mate. Thank you so much. What I'd like to do now is share my screen, guys, and share some slides, if I may. Okay. All right, so let's talk about it. Human relations or human resources, ladies and gentlemen, is about the relationship between the employer, the company, and their employees, all right? The relationship between the employer and employees is determined largely by the basic principle of human resources, and that is every person that works for you must have what we call the right documentation or the right contract in place in order to be employed or properly employed. It's a very core element of HR. Once we've employed people, then we go into all the other elements of HR that you need to have in place. So the first thing is the relationship between you, the employer, and the employee. And this relationship is significantly defined by the contract of employment signed between an employer and employee. No matter which part of the globe you're in, which country you're in, or which universe you're in, there is still an letter of employment or a contract of employment or some written agreement of employment in some shape or form that is used. Generally, under Singapore law, parties are free to contract as they choose, and any matters arising between them would have to be resolved by looking at either an expressed or implied terms in the contract. So in Singapore, anybody can contract with anyone to employ anyone. That's normal. Anybody can offer a contract to another person. But generally around the world, everywhere, there is legislation or laws that actually regulate the terms required to contract between an employer and an employee. And the reason these laws are in place is to prevent unreasonable constraints and limitations on parties involved. In every country, there are specific laws in regards to what should or shouldn't be in a contract of employment. So the first element of HR for any business owner or somebody practicing HR is understanding what the difference is, or what the difference is, or the content of a contract of service, or better known in its common name, employment contract. Any contract which is an employment contract is known at law as a contract of service. Everybody remember that? Anybody who's employed under contract, the legal name other than employment contract is a contract of service. Okay? A contract of service or an employment contract can be either oral or verbal. In some countries, verbal employment contracts are acceptable, but in the majority of countries around the world, written employment contracts are a requirement. And the reason we use written contracts is because they avoid ambiguity or rule out any chance of ambiguity. An employment contract is usually set down, or the terms of employment are usually defined by an employment act, which in most countries exist. The majority of countries around the world today have what's known as employment regulations or an employment act as such. And this employment act prescribes the minimum standards for terms and conditions of employment, such terms equal or more favorable than other conditions set out in the employment regulations or employment act. An employer cannot change any terms in an employment contract once it's been signed unless the employee agrees in writing. And any employment contract or contract of service you sign with someone who will be employed to you and be known as your employee has to meet the minimum requirements set down by your government's Employment or Industrial Relations Act, employment law, and or industrial relations decisions that have been brought down as a result of an employee suing an employer or a union suing an industry employer. So in any country, you must observe any employment or industrial relations laws that have been documented and are now in place when writing an employment contract. For example, in an employment contract, there must be a benefit to two parties. There must be a benefit for the employee by way of salary or compensation, and the employer must receive a benefit of the employee delivering his knowledge or his skills or his labor to the employer. Let's talk about what are the key clauses that are common in employment contracts all over the world. Remember, an employment contract is also known as a contract of service. A contract of service. A contract of service essentially contains the following key terms: a job designation and the scope of the job, the commencement of work, details of the salary and allowances, if any, the hours of work per day, per week, or per shift, the rate of overtime applicable if the employee exceeds his working hours, the number of rest days, how many days off, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, the employee's benefits, example, annual leave, sick leave, hospitalization leave, and most importantly, it must define termination of employment contract and notice periods conditions. So you cannot just say to an employee, you're fired, without observing the elements of termination in the contract. For example, in Singapore, every contract will have a termination clause in it, and it will say that whilst the employee is under probation in his first 3 months or 6 months, whatever the probation period is stipulated, should he decide to resign, he needs to give 1 day notice. Should the employer decide to fire him, it is 1 day notice. However, after the employee completes the probation period, depending on the contract of employment, the actual termination clause should include or could include the employee giving his employer 1 month's notice and the employer giving the employee 1 month's notice for termination with cause. All right. Termination without cause, you don't have to give them a reason, provided you can show that they have broken the law or they've committed a crime. You can terminate immediately. Now, what are the criteria for being able to terminate someone without cause? If they've broken the law, if they've stolen from you, they've committed a crime, or done anything which breaches your business rules or integrity and harms your business, that could be grounds for termination without cause. You don't have to give cause, but you have to give them notice. So if they have been working with you for 1 year and you want to terminate, depending on your contract, you will have to give them either 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 1 month notice. If you do not want them to work, you can say to them that your period of notice will be taken as served, but you must pay them that 1 month in lieu. Does everybody understand that? All right. So a contract of employment must define all the critical areas, Vivi. That is the following: the job designation and the scope of the job, Vivi, the commencement date of work, the details of the salary and allowances, if any, the hours of work or number of shifts or days per week that the employee will work, the rate of overtime payment made to the worker, if applicable. In Singapore, workers that earn more than a certain amount are not entitled to overtime. All right, so it depends on the type of worker and how much overtime and their salary as to what the overtime rate is. However, if they work on a public holiday, there is clear laws about how much overtime they should get. But if they work overtime on a normal work day, say their hours are from 8 till 4, and you tell them to work 3 hours overtime, there should be a clear definition in your contract saying what will be the rate of overtime. It could be 1.5 hours normal hours. It could be, depending on the law, if it's a weekend, double the normal pay. But again, that will always depend on your local laws. Next step. Before we employ someone, before we go out advertising a job or trying to recruit someone, we need to make sure we understand what that job is and what sort of work will this job do. All right, let me talk to some of you. Does anybody know what is the internal document that describes a job before we employ somebody for that job? Does anybody know the name of that document, the internal document? Okay, let's talk to people who've raised their hand. Okay, go ahead. Just bear with me for a moment, would you please? Okay.
It's about job description, right?
Thank you very much, sir. Magic, job description. Thank you so much. But tell me, what should be done before the job description happens? What should a company's HR department, what process should they go through first? Do you know?
No.
All right. You're on the right track. We start with what we call job analysis, JA. All right. JA.
Yeah.
The second component is JD. And the third component is JC. Can you all write that down? J for Juliet A, J for Juliet, D for Denmark. Okay. And the last one is J for Juliet, C for cat. Remember these three basic requirements: JA, JD, and JC. Thank you very much. Now let's talk about what is JA to start with. So you're going to offer somebody employment. We understand in order for you to do that, there must be an employment contract. We know that a contract for employment is the same as a contract of service. Everybody write that down. Contract of service is commonly at law defined as an employment contract, okay? Contract of service, better known as COS, okay? Now, there's another form of contract which some of you will know, and it's called CFS, Contract for Service. Let me tell you the definition. A contract of service means that the person works for you as an employee, and that means he's entitled to all the employment benefits prescribed under your local government laws. However, if you employ someone, Kudanazar, as under a contract for service, CFS, you can save money, because when they're under contract for service, they are not entitled to annual leave. They are not entitled to medical benefits. They are not entitled to any performance appraisal or benefits or bonuses at the end of the year. They're not entitled to AWS, okay, annual wage supplement. They are not entitled to anything, because under a contract for service, they are subcontractors working for you as a service provider. So they are freelancers. Yes, go ahead, sir. Would you like to ask a question? Yes, go ahead. I can't hear you. Go ahead. Unmute your microphone. I'm sorry, Kudanazar.
Yeah. The contract for service, we also can call the outsource contract, right? Outsourcing contract.
In some countries, they call it outsource, but its legal name at law is called a contract for service. The law defines it as a contract for service, but let me just correct you. A lot of HR people call it an outsource contract, but its legal terminology at law is known under law as a contract for service, sir. But they both equate to the same thing. But if you're operating under the common law and you go before a court, the interpretation would be it must comply with the definition of a contract for service, which equates to an outsourced contract because the person doesn't work for you. They are a self-employed subcontractor, so they're not entitled to any benefits. Now, for any of you who's starting your own businesses and are trying to reduce the overhead costs of annual leave and all the other accrued benefits that you must pay somebody under contract of service, then contract for service is a cheaper way for you to employ people. They only work a number of hours and you pay them for the hours they work. Now, there is a distinction, as my colleague, my dear student here said, if you employ them under outsourced contract or a contract for service, you don't have to pay benefits such as leave, medical, any entitlements at all. You do not have to pay anything, basically. All you have to pay is their hourly rate or the rate that you're contracted for them to perform the service. So if in your country you have what's known as Social Security or a retirement fund of some kind, okay, you don't have to contribute to that on behalf of the employee, providing it's a requirement at law. In Singapore, anybody who works, the employer must make a contribution to the Central Provident Fund, which is similar to a superannuation fund. Now, in most countries, the law says that when an employee is employed by you under a contract of service, you have obligations to contribute to their retirement fund or superannuation clause. All right. So if you employ them under a contract for service, you don't have to pay any of those benefits. Does everybody understand that? Is a cheaper way for you to get people to work. What sort of jobs can you give to somebody under contract for service? Let me give you an example. Let's say Kenny K, you may employ a contract for service. Say you opened a restaurant and you only need someone to come in and prepare, for example, satay sauce once a week. So you could employ someone to come in once a week for 4 hours, make the satay sauce for you, put it in the cool room and go home. Because if you're to employ this lady 5 days a week and pay her a salary, it will become a bigger financial commitment for you. But if you pay her $10 or $12 an hour, 3 hours a week, and her job is simply to come in, follow the recipe, make the sauce, wash the utensils and go home, that way it will not put your normal cook staff under pressure that you could do under a contract for service. Do you understand me, Kenny K? All right, good. All right, so once we've decided we're going to employ people, whether it's under contract of service or contract for service, before we go ahead and employ them, we need to identify what the role of that job is. And that's where we do something called job analysis. Let's talk about that now. Okay, job analysis is a systematic process of determining the skills, duties, and knowledge required for performing jobs in an organization. All right, remember that? It is a systematic process on determining the skills, duties, and knowledge required for performing jobs in any organization. So let me ask somebody here, if we want to work, for example, in a Chinese kitchen, what would be some of the skills we would need to have to work in a Chinese kitchen as a chef? Who could tell me? Rajesh, could you tell me? Could you unmute your microphone, Rajesh? Unmute your microphone, Rajesh. Are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay,
sir.
so Rajesh, if you owned a Chinese restaurant or a restaurant in your country, what are the basic skills that you would need for someone to work as a chef? Can you give me some idea?
I don't have much, but let me share something. We have to handle, as a chef, we have to handle how the customers should behave and
all right. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Customer service is one part, but if he's chef working in the kitchen, there would be a lot more important skills. For example, how to cook in a commercial kitchen, whether he understands recipes in Chinese cuisine. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes, sir.
Good. Excellent. I'll come back to you. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So job analysis is where you document the needs of that role. And usually you would do that before you employ people, because if you employ 4 or 5 people and then find out one person can do all 3 of those tasks, you're wasting your money. All right. So always job analysis is the first element of defining the job before you employ anybody for it. Do you understand what I mean by that, Jenny Montero? Hello, Jenny. You want to open your microphone? Unmute your microphone, young lady. Hi, Jenny. Do you understand what I mean by job analysis, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
So, Jenny, can you give me an example? What if you were to open your own business? Let's say you open a hairdressing salon. What do you think some of the basic skills and duties that you would have to identify in job analysis would be for your senior hairstylist that works for you? Give me some examples. Can you do that?
Some examples are for the salon, sir. Make sure the staff should undergo first in the training how to cut in the hair.
Right.
Or
okay.
Some do the nail, pedicure, manicure, if they have the skills for that.
All right. Great. Excellent. You're on the right track. What you've said here is correct. Before they can touch a customer's hair, they would have to be trained in how to cut hair. They would probably have to be trained in the art of coloring hair. And if they want to work as a full hairdresser beautician, they would also have to be qualified as nail beauticians or cosmetologists, cosmetic artists or makeup artists. Would you agree with me on that?
Yes, sir.
Good, excellent. Thank you for helping out with that. I'll come back to you. All right, so let's go back here. So we understand what job analysis is. Let's go back to what we were talking about. So let's talk about job analysis. What is job analysis, everyone? Take note of this. If you don't understand this, take a picture of it, please. Job analysis summarizes. You can take a picture or take a print screen, no issue. Job analysis summarizes the tasks, the responsibilities, and the duties of the job. In order to put those in document, we need to form what we call a job description, which is a result or a documented piece of paper that outlines what your job analysis has uncovered. All right, so the job analysis would identify what the job will be, it will describe the job, and it will give you the specifications that the job requires. The knowledge, how to cut hair, how to color hair, how to do makeup artists, the skills, could be scissor cutting, machine cutting, different types. I don't know, I'm not in that business. And the other thing could be abilities. So your job analysis needs to cover the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities. All right. So remember, as a result of job analysis, you will come up with job descriptions and job specifications. And these are very important as your business grows, because they will help you determine how many people you employ, how much training and development budget you need. They will also help you in making sure you do correct performance appraisal. They will make sure that you compensate people correctly. They will make sure that you actually have the right safety and health regulations or rules in place. If you operate a kitchen or a hairdressing salon or a factory, they will make sure that you have the correct employee relations or labor relations based on the prescribed law in your country. And the job description should also make sure that you are covered or you have not broken any legal considerations. So your job description could not say that the employee has to murder human beings, or the employee is allowed to put poison in somebody's food. So you have to be careful, legal considerations. What is the job? What is the job description? It cannot contain any illegal activity, because then the job wouldn't be legal and you shouldn't be employing someone to carry out an illegal activity. In some countries, smoking tobacco from a water pipe, or as it's known as a shisha, in most Middle Eastern countries is illegal. So if in the job description you were to say the waiter's job was to serve hubba bubble or water pipes or tobacco pipes in the form of a water bubble pipe, a shisha as it's known, you would be breaking the law. So remember, job analysis identifies the tasks, the responsibilities, and the duties. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to share with you a template for job analysis that you can take a picture of and use. One moment, please. Okay, give me a moment. Let me bring it up for you. Just one moment. Okay, one moment, please. We're just opening the template up and I'll put it up for you to have a look at. One moment, please. Okay. All right, here we go. Just one moment, please. Why isn't it going up? All right, here we go. Where are we? Okay, I've lost it for some reason. Just give me a minute. Let me find it for you. Okay, all right. So on the screen now, you should all be able to see a document. Can everybody see the document I put up? Yeah? Okay, you should be able to see a document. All right, why has that gone? Just one moment. We've lost it for some reason. One moment, please. Okay, can everybody see it now? Can you wave your hands? Can everybody see it? Okay, let's go through this. So basically, as you can see from this job analysis template, you see that you can, it says job analysis. Use this form to conduct a job analysis for a new or existing job or position in your business. So you would outline the date you're doing this, the job title, the department, who it reports to, what is it, what's the classification, is it junior level, supervisor level, manager level, or is it a technical job like junior hairstylist, senior hairstylist? And who are they supervised by? The head hairstylist, the senior hairstylist, or the salon manager? And then you would go down here and you would write the job. For example, let's go back to a hairdressing salon. If the person is a receptionist, the major function would be customer service, serving customers, okay? They may have to have at least 1 year's experience in customer service or 1 year's experience working in a hairdressing salon. You might require them to have a certificate in retail operation or to have studied customer service. And then what you would do is you would need to say whether that skill is essential or desirable. What do we mean by that? If the skill is essential, that means they must have that skill in order to get the job. If it's desirable, it means you can employ them and then they can learn it as they're working for you. Do you all understand that? Can you wave your hands? Okay. All right, good. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Do you understand what I'm saying, Nazgul? Are you there, Nazgul? Are you following me, Nazgul, or am I going too fast? Are you there, Nazgul?
Yes.
Okay. Can you understand what I'm
yes,
saying, or am I speaking
yes.
too fast?
Sure. Yes. No,
Okay.
it's okay. Thank
All
you.
right. So a job analysis, depending on the job, if you're doing this job analysis for somebody who's a receptionist in a medical clinic, the same thing would happen. So you would say medical clinic receptionist. The first major function may be customer service. The second one could be making appointments. The third one could be keeping medical records up to date. The fourth one could be sending tests to laboratory. All of these would be tasks that this person needs to do, and you would have to define whether they're essential or desirable. So once you've done all this and you've put it down here, okay, you can also actually have this job analysis validated. You can use this as a discussion with other people who are doing the job now, and they can tell you what are the requirements for the job you want to build in your company. For example, if you're opening a factory to make pens, pens, you're making pens. So if you are building a factory to make pens, you might want to talk to somebody who is a factory manager in another pen factory that can help you come up with the job analysis for the different jobs in a job factory. So this is what we call job analysis, all right? Job analysis. Now, what we need to do with this now is we need to look at the next step. What does job analysis do and why do we need it, all right? So job analysis, as we said, job analysis is the first step, okay, before we go to developing a job description and employing someone. Okay, here we go. All right, so, no, I put up the wrong one. Bear with me for a moment, please. All right, just bear with me. All right, can everybody see my screen now? Can you see my slide? So why do we need job analysis? Why job analysis? Because if you have job analysis, it eliminates the need or haphazards. If recruiter does not know the qualifications needed for the job, they won't be able to recruit the right person. Training and development. If you don't have job analysis and you don't know what the job skills and requirements are, you cannot provide your staff future training and development or training of skills and improving their abilities. If you do not have job analysis, you cannot do performance appraisal and decide which of your staff are doing a better job and who you should give a higher reward to. If you don't have job analysis, you can't properly evaluate how much the compensation or salary should be. As I said, if you don't have job analysis, you can't make sure that you have all the safety, health and safety regulations in place. You cannot make sure that you're obeying all the employee labor relations because you haven't documented exactly what the job entails. And you could be breaking laws or legal considerations if you don't clearly define the job so the people that you're employing know exactly what the task is before they start. All right. The types of data we collect in job analysis are work activities, worker-oriented activities, the machines or tools they may be working with, the job-related tangibles and intangibles, the knowledge they need to have or they need to build as they work. For example, if they're working in the finance department, accounting skills, you need to actually know what the work performance standards is. Okay, so if they're working in a factory on a production line, they need to be able to produce so many pieces a day, etc. You need to know the job context. What is the work schedule? What is the salaries? What are the non-financial incentives? How is there any physical requirement for the job? For example, if they're driving a car or flying a plane, they need to have perfect eyesight. They need to have certain other skills to get a driver's license. Okay, and the next one is the personal requirements for the job. What sort of personality, what sort of work culture does the person you're employing have to fit into? Does everybody understand how important it is to do job analysis? Can you wave your hands if you're following me, guys? Good, excellent, love you. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so job analysis can be done in different ways. You can do it through asking questions, by observing people, by doing interviews with other people who've done the job, or by visiting another company that does the same job and videotaping the worker that's doing the same job that you want to employ. And then you can use a combination of these methods to document the job as it best suits your business or your company. All right. Usually if you use questionnaires, they're typically quick, economical to use, structured questionnaires, problems. The questionnaires should ask about what does the job involve, what skills that this person need to have. And sometimes you have to be careful because if you ask another person working in your shop, well, listen, you're one of my stylists and I want you to help me to come up with a job description because till now, our salon doesn't have job descriptions. Be careful because that worker might add extra responsibilities that don't really happen. So usually if you use questionnaires, you usually get more than you need. It's better to either observe, ask questions, or see somebody else do the job, or refer to a job description from the internet for some ideas. Okay. All right, so basically most companies, multinational companies, they have a person who specializes in job analysis and he's called a job analyst who will help you write this. If you're running your own business, unfortunately, you have to do it unless you want to employ a very expensive consultant like me to do it for you. All right, so interviews, as I said, interviews means that you interview another employee or another supervisor who knows the job you want to develop or a new job you want to create. You also could interview other people that are doing the same job elsewhere, and then you basically have to analyze the information before you put it into your job analysis and build a job description. Okay, you can even go and videotape somebody else doing the job. All right, some companies use a combination of all. Some companies just refer to the internet or ask somebody who's already done the job. Okay, remember that job analysis should be functional. It should be real. It shouldn't be exaggerated. Okay, modifications of the job analysis schedule should be accurate. So that means if you start doing job analysis today, you should follow it through. Because if you start it today and then finish it after 6 months, whatever you have written may have changed. the business, the industry, or your customers may have changed. So the function of that job may have changed. All right, the orientated approach is a very simple approach, which I recommend to all of you. The job-oriented approach mainly focuses on the job outcomes. So when you do job analysis, always remember, the most important thing to identify is what is the outcome of the job that this person has to do. All right, and what are the factors that will affect him being able to do it? If I employ someone to cook and that person doesn't know how to cook, then he will not be able to do the job. Does everybody understand what I mean by the oriented approach? Be realistic. Be realistic. Okay, so remember, when you do job analysis, you have to be clear and unambiguous and realistic. The requirements for the job should not be overstated, okay? And each element should be accessible through the selection procedure, which follows a practice of equal opportunities approved and authorized by the appropriate person in your company or by the local laws of your country. All right? The requirements, remember, should not be overstated, and they should be something that are measurable. The requirements should be something that are not overstated. Don't be absurd and say that this cleaner needs to clean 1,000 hotel rooms a day on their own, because that would be overstated. The cleaner needs to clean rooms based on operational requirements. Be careful what you write. Does everybody understand that? Be careful what you write. All right. Okay, so as I said, people who participate in job analysis should include at minimum an employee who's done the job, or the person who's going to be the direct supervisor of this person coming in to do the new job. We've gone through this and I showed you what this looks like. Now, the next part is what we call the job description. The job description. And I'm going to give you a quick brief summary. A job description is the JD part. We've covered JA, job analysis. The second part is Juliet Delta, job description. A job description is a written document that clearly states the required duties, responsibilities of a specific role, including the essential skills, education, and experience required of a successful job candidate or applicant. Okay, so before we go into that, let's look at what a job description is. A job description is a simple document, and I'm going to show you one now, and we're going to go through each of the paragraphs. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay, can everybody see my screen? You should be able to see a job description there. Can everybody see it? Can you wave your hands? Good. So this is a typical job description for company example XYZ. And as you see, the job title is Logistics and Distribution Manager. His immediate supervisor is the Chief Executive Officer. He also repeats directly to the Chief Executive Officer. They have given it a code and they've called it WYN19. So that means that once this job description is written, they can file it in numerical order, which is what they've done. Okay, so what they've done here is the first part is the job purpose. What is the purpose of the job? And if you read this, it says the Logistics and Distributions Manager is responsible for managing multiple logistics programs and related customer service activities. He or she is also responsible for managing contracts to ensure customer requirements are met and managing overall program resources, including manpower, internal assets, and external vendors. He or she is also responsible for business development, managing large key accounts, sales, both broad-based and niche warehousing services, including performing market research, prospecting, developing relationships and potential customers, and achieving sales targets. It says that they must be analytical and logical. He or she is required to manage resources and obtain buy-in from internal and external stakeholders. He or she is also expected to lead programs and make business decisions independently. So this is a management job. This is a management job. And for any management job, ladies and gentlemen, we add one extra criteria, and that's what we call dimensions. Now, we wouldn't put dimensions for a junior job like a hairdresser or a salon manager. We could put it for a salon manager because they're running the salon for you, but we wouldn't put it for a supervisor. We wouldn't put it for the girl that sweeps the floor. We wouldn't put it for a cook. We could put it for the executive chef or the head of food and beverage in your organization, or director of food and beverage. We only use dimensions for senior executive roles. And what we need to do is actually tell or document how much revenue will this job be responsible for. If our company is projecting 100 million in revenue through sales, and this person is a sales manager, so the revenue he would support would be $100 million. We need to also estimate what are the departmental costs that he or she will be responsible for. How many employees will he or she look after? All right. And is there any other responsibility? It says here, the other responsibility for this person is sale of the art equipment, SGD $20 million worth. Okay. Okay, so basically, we've given him additional responsibilities. And what are those responsibilities? We have equipment, state-of-the-art equipment that needs to be sold because we've replaced it, and it's part of his job. This is only an example. So dimensions are only there to help assess the salary you're going to give this person. All right, and you only use dimensions for senior management jobs, not for junior jobs. All right. Does everybody understand that? Does everybody understand what I'm saying, guys? Can you all wave to me? Do you all understand it? Duong, do you understand it? Duong T? Thank you. All right, good. Do you understand it, Rima? Wave your hand, Rima. Do you understand it, Rima? Wave. Good girl. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Cicilin, do you understand it, Cicilin? Good, excellent. Okay. All right, let's go back and continue. All right, just give me a moment. So the next element that we need to look at is the accountabilities and tasks. So for each task or accountability this job has, we need to document it. Drive data analytics, drive logistics solution services, drive program management activities, drive customer service, drive business administration operations. We go on, we list all the tasks. Then we talk about the job context. The job context is another important element that you need to put down for every job. The job context talks about whether it's an internal and external relationships for the job. If he's a salesman, he will have internal relationships and external relationships. This guy is a logistics manager. His internal relationships are management, finance, HR, haulage, warehouse, traffic control, and sales. His external relationships would be vendors and suppliers. Okay, if you're running a sales business, his internal context relationships could be marketing, distribution, and operations. External could be customers. All right. Does everybody follow that so far? All right. Next element we have to cover are the competencies. Remember we said JA, JD, and the last one was JC, job competencies. And this is where we list the technical skills that they're required to have and the generic skills. All right. Does everybody understand that? Do you all follow that? So if you're working in a hairdressing salon, technical skills would be cutting, applying makeup, mixing hair color or applying hair color, doing perms, straightening hair. They would all be technical skills. If you're talking about generic skills like communication, problem solving, creative thinking, teamwork, they would all be generic skills. All right. Does everybody understand that so far? Please tell me if I'm going too fast. If you want a sample of this later, I can share some with you. All right. You then would need to list the qualifications and skills this person needs to have and the number of years of experience you require them to have. All right. And then, of course, you would list the name of the consultancy firm and the name of your company that is putting the job description in place. Okay. Just bear with me. Okay, let me stop sharing that. Does everybody understand what I mean by a job description? Do you all see the importance of a job description? I do have a blank template and a sample, and later, if you want the sample, I am happy to make it available to you. All right. Does anybody have any questions so far about the 4 elements? Let's talk about them. Who am I going to talk to first? Let's talk to Nurella. Nurella Turkban. Hello, Nurella. How are you today? You want to talk to me?
Yes, I'm hearing you well.
Good. Do you understand the difference, Nurella, between job analysis, job description, and job competencies?
I have not enough knowledge about this.
All right. Okay. But I hope you've got an idea. So what we're saying, before we employ someone, you need to basically document what the job is. That's through job analysis. Then you need to come up with a document called a job description to describe the job. And in the job description, you would have to also outline what are the core competencies and what are the technical competencies somebody needs to have to do the job. Does that make it easier for you?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, you cannot learn this in 3 hours. The idea of today is just to get a quick idea of what we're talking about. It's basically just to do that. Just bear with me for a moment. Just bear with me. 1 moment, please. Sorry about that, guys. I do apologize. Okay, so what I was saying to the gentleman I was talking to, today is basically to give you a rough idea, Nurella, of what HR in your business involves. And I hope that helps you. And if you have any questions at the end, Nurella, I'd love to talk to you and try to answer those for you. Would that be okay?
Okay.
Great, excellent, thank you. Okay, let's talk to somebody else here. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon. Okay, let's talk to somebody else. Who has a question? Does anybody else have a question about what we've covered so far? Does anybody else have a question? Okay, we have a gentleman here smiling. I'm sure he has questions. Objon Mamdov, do you have any questions? Would you like to unmute your microphone, Objon? Are you there? Would you like to unmute your microphone? Ayub John, would you like to unmute your microphone? Hello. Hi, mate. How are you? Good. You need to, I think there's noise in the background, mate. You need to put down your TV or radio. Can you hear me now? Yes. So do you understand what I'm talking about when I say job analysis, job description, and job competencies? I'm sorry, mate, I can't hear you. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, I can't hear you. All right, let's move on. Does anybody else want to talk to me? but John, if you want to attend this session, you need to switch off the music and the TV and focus so you can learn something, please, because it's really annoying if I try to talk to you and you're too busy listening to music or watching TV. So either switch it all off and focus, or, you know, you're not learning anything, my dear friend. Okay. Okay.
Hello,
So
sir. Hi,
yes,
sir. It's Shadi.
go ahead. Just give me
Shadi.
1 minute, Shadi. Just 1 minute. Okay. Let me just mute John. Okay. Go ahead, Shadi. Yes, sir.
How are
Do
you,
you
sir?
understand what I've been talking about? How are you today?
Yeah, it's very interesting information, but I have a question for
Yeah.
job description.
Yeah.
Now, who's supposed to prepare this job analysis, job description? Is it the,
Okay.
for
Let me
example,
talk about that.
HR or the department head, or who's supposed to
Okay.
prepare such
A very good
valuable,
question. That was
important skills
the
and,
next point I was going to go to when I answered the questions, but let me answer it now. Technically speaking, if you're a small, medium enterprise and you have 20 or 30 employees, there's only two people can do it: the owner of the business or the person you employ to be HR. Now, if you employ a junior HR clerk that just pays salaries and employs people, they may not have the skill. So if you don't have a HR person that is skilled, then you need to actually, as the owner of the business, guide them to do it. All right. Now, for example, if you own a factory and your factory, you employ a factory director or a head of manufacturing in the factory, he would be responsible for all the job descriptions in the factory, so far as making sure he collects the right information through job analysis, and then he would work with the HR person who would transfer that to a job description. All right. So the head of department would be involved in the job analysis. However, the documentation of the job description and formatting the job description, that would be up to the managing director, the general manager, your secretary, or the HR clerk, sir. All right.
Okay, clear.
But
Thank you.
I do warn you, Shadi, do not go down the road unless you know what to write or you get help, because the last thing you want to do is write job descriptions that don't mean anything. And then when you employ people, it will demotivate them and they will leave. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yes. And
All right, good on you.
one important, just one more question related to the KPIs.
Yes,
Can
sir.
we keep KPIs or key performance indicators in such documents in job analysis or job description?
No, KPIs, sir, you can, okay. If you look at the job description I showed you, for management positions, you have financial dimensions. Remember the top, I showed you dimensions?
Yes,
So
the
for
dimension.
for a factory manager, a general manager, a warehouse manager, your production manager, they would all have financial dimensions. Now the KPIs, sir, you would keep that, you can keep that either in two places. You can keep that stored against the performance appraisal template for that job, okay? Or you can also include it into the job description in a box called key performance indicators. You can do that, yes, sir. It is not common today to put them in the job description, Shadi, because for most companies, KPIs change regularly. So what they do is the job description is very generic, but the KPIs are usually documented in either a separate document called KPIs, and it's a key performance indicators for this particular job with the same job code, and the employee is given a copy of it. And when it comes to his performance appraisal, those KPIs would appear in the performance template or the performance appraisal. Okay, I'll talk to you more about that as we go through the presentation, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. Let me go back to my presentation, if I may. Okay, let's share. So let me talk about, let me get rid of this. Okay, oops. Okay, let me get rid of this as well. Okay, so a job description is a written document that clearly states the required duties and responsibilities of the specific role, including the essential education and experience required of a successful candidate. Very important. A job description is a useful plain language tool that explains the tasks, duties, functions, and responsibilities of the job or the position. It details who does the job, how they do the job, and it details the purpose or the frequency of the work, and it also is in line with the company's mission and vision. The job descriptions are used for a variety of reasons, such as determining salary levels, conducting performance reviews, clarifying missions, establishing titles and pay grades, and creating reasonable accommodation controls, and as a tool for recruiting. Remember, if you don't have a job description, you cannot really recruit the right person because you don't know what you're looking for. And if you think you know and you don't have it in writing, then later that person could say, I didn't know, no one told me. All right? Does everybody understand that? I didn't know, no one told me. And that is ambiguity. Job descriptions are useful in career planning, offering training exercise and establishing legal requirements. It also is a job description given an employee, it goes to give an employee a clear idea of what their job role will be. So before you employ them, you tell them what their job is, and the job description is discussed during the interview, because you don't want to employ someone who then says, oh, you didn't tell me this was the job, I'm leaving. So it's very important that you have a documented job description. A job description is an essential part of the job application process, and everybody should be shown the job description at the interview. It should be discussed. From the organization's point of view, as an employer, the job description is vital in ensuring that the applications received for the position closely match the needs of the role itself. So Shadi, if you're going to employ 200 people to work in a factory and you just go employing factory workers without stipulating which factory workers need to have what skills, it could mean that you're spending too much money on the wrong jobs and not employing the right people. By the time you pay recruitment fees to labor agents and to recruitment agencies, you could end up wasting money and recruiting the wrong people. What should be included in the job description? The job title, the job purpose, the job duties and responsibilities, the required qualifications, the preferred qualifications, the required skills, licenses, and/or work experience, and the working conditions. What do I mean by preferred qualifications? If you want him to speak Italian, then that would be a preferred qualification. That would be a preferred qualification, that he's fluent and he has a degree in the Italian language, or he's passed Italian at school. That could be a qualification. However, the required skills could be that he has a forklift driver's license. He can drive a forklift, or that he's worked in a factory that produces chemicals, for example, for at least 5 years. Specific requirements. If he has to wear, work in a factory and has to wear a clean suit, a white suit, dust-free suit, or he has to wear protective clothing, you would have to put working conditions include wearing protective clothing, working in a dust-free area, in a highly secured area, or working in a cool room, etc., etc., etc. All right, so we've looked at that. All right, now, once we've got a job description, we've got job analysis, job description, and we've included the job competencies, we need to talk about the next most important thing in getting people to work for us. And that is, what are compensation and benefits? How do we compensate these people? Remember, compensation and benefits refers to the compensation, salary, or other monetary, non-monetary benefits passed on by a firm to its employees. Compensation and benefits is an important aspect of human resources. It helps keep the workers that you have motivated, and it's actually their remuneration for the work they do for you. In Europe, there is often a focus on social benefits, including parental leave, severance pay, termination notice. In countries like France and Finland, it's not uncommon for employers to pay restaurant vouchers that cover part of the employee's lunch. All of these are part of what we call compensation and benefits. Let's talk about it. Does anybody here know of some ways that big companies are now around the world are motivating employees? Nurullah, you might know that at Facebook, employees are provided breakfast, lunch, and dinner. At Google, when they go to work, they have a chef that works round the clock in their office. Anybody that works for Google can go and eat in the Google cafeteria round the clock. Why does Google do that, Nurella? Because it motivates their employees to work harder. It might cost Google money, but at the end of the day, instead of giving them an extra $1,000 a month for food, it's cheaper for Google to have their own internal restaurant and chef. And Google does that at all its offices around the world. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Does anybody know that? If you work for Google and you go to work for Google in any city in the world, the office at Google is like a playground. You sit in bean bags, they have table tennis tables, people work in different colored areas, and you can work flexi hours. So the people that need to be there during the day can come in at 5 o'clock in the morning and leave at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So Google knows if you come in at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be hungry. You haven't had breakfast, you haven't drunk coffee, so you will not be able to perform. You'll be depressed. Why do I have to start at 5 o'clock in the morning? So Google has a Google cafeteria in every office in every part of the world. And they employ a qualified chef who's taught recipes from America and from the country they're in. And he must prepare 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, afternoon tea, and dinner. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, people at Google say the reason they love working for Google is they do not have to cook at home, because every day when they go to work, they get to eat dinner before they come home. All right. So that's a benefit. That's a social benefit that Google provides its employees. Facebook does the same thing. All right. There's some other companies around the world that give their staff money to go out and have lunch and enjoy their lunch. So Shadi, in France, if you work for a big company, the company says you have to go out and buy lunch every day, and food in France is expensive. So the company gives every employee a book of vouchers every week. These vouchers are good at 4 or 5 restaurants, and the staff can go and pick up free lunch using these vouchers. Now, for me and you might say as a business, it's stupid, it's extra costs. But ladies and gentlemen, it's not, because how do they pay you back? How do you think the employees will reward you? Shadi, what's your answer? How do you think you'll reap the benefits?
It's good benefit for all people. Such benefit, it may return for the employer that you'll get more loyalty, more work.
Right.
They will stand by him, with him by the hard times. Imagine if you have hard times, you have more production to do, they will stand by you. They will never leave you.
That's right. And the other thing, Shadi, is if they have to work night shift at the factory and they know they don't have to go outside to buy dinner, that somebody's going to provide them hot dinner in the factory, there's going to be less employees calling in sick and taking off days. Because, you know, some people that work night shift, they get depressed. I eat rubbish. I can't eat with my family. But if they know they can come to work and at a certain hour, they can all go and sit in the cafeteria and eat together as if they're eating at home, it will become a second home for them. And you know, as well as I do, the majority of us spend more time at work than we spend with our real nuclear families. Do you understand that, everyone? Okay,
Correct,
thank
yes.
you. Thank you for your contribution, Shadi. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, all right. So ladies and gentlemen, in Europe, as I said, they give out restaurant vouchers, and it's very common. And that is becoming common in Japan and in Korea. Right now, when your kids go to school in Japan or Korea, the school is required by law to cook hot lunch for all the students every day. So if your children go to school in Japan, Korea, or China, they don't eat junk food. All the students must go to the dining room and the cafeteria. They all sit together by the grade or the class they're in, and the teacher supervises them to have lunch together, and they create verbal discussion. In some countries, they don't do that. In Japan, Korea, China, now in Australia, in primary schools and some other parts of the world, children actually learn table manners at school because the teacher will sit with them for lunch. I'm not sure if you do that in your country yet, but it will happen one day, okay? All right, so the benefits you provide to your employees, whether it's money you pay them, whether it's vouchers you give them, whether it's leave that you provide them, like study leave, sick leave, maternity leave, marriage leave, compassionate leave. Some companies, if somebody dies in the family of your employee, the company will give them an envelope with money to pay for the funeral, or will send a wreath of flowers to the funeral, depending on your customs. All right. Now, in my former company in the UAE, which was a shipping company, if one of our captains or sea masters died anywhere in the world, a senior manager from HR flew to the home of that person and appeared at the funeral on behalf of the company. And usually we gave them a check or amount of money to help pay the funeral costs. But we were a multinational shipping line with over 18,000 seagoing staff. So we could afford to do that. Some companies just give money. Some companies actually make it the job of the HR director to go to the funeral and pay respects to the family, especially if that person died on the job. Do you understand where I'm coming from, everyone? Yes or no? All right. So all of these are benefits, and they are benefits that have a cost on the business, and therefore they must be put into the compensation and benefits policy, so your HR manager can actually budget how much they're going to cost you every year and put them into your manpower plan. Do you understand that, everyone? Because every company needs a manpower budget that tells you how much each job is going to cost, what is the total cost, and how much is that person going to cost you for the next 12 months. All right? Because Shadi needs to know that if employs 200 factory workers, the bill for those workers at the end of the year is going to take away 180,000 US dollars from his turnover. He needs to budget for that. And if Shadi promises these people 2 weeks leave every year, he needs to budget. The 140,000 is only salaries. I also have to budget 2 weeks of annual leave. That's going to add another 80,000 to my salary bill. So you need to have a compensation and benefits plan based on which your head of HR and your finance manager will put figures into a manpower plan, manpower budget plan, manpower planning exercise, which is a very technical exercise, but hopefully one day we'll run a session on that. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Okay, good, excellent. All right, let's go on. All right, so the next element is, why are compensation and benefits important? Very important. Compensation and benefits are important for 2 reasons. One, first, people won't work without pay. Why do we all go to work? I mean, does anybody here work for charity? Do any of you here work for charity? Wave your hands. I love you if you do. You can come and work for me tomorrow. Okay, all right. Alayu, you work for charity? You want to come here and work free of charge? Come over, mate. I'll give you $5 a day for a hamburger, and you can work free of charge, charity. Okay, I'm sure you won't, mate. All right. But anyway, no one works for charity. No one works for charity. Okay, so everybody wants to be remunerated or compensated for their efforts. Now, sometimes, Shadi, and sometimes, guys, let's not hide it. As employers, sometimes we underpay people because we don't know how much the job is really worth. Shadi could own a restaurant in the Middle East, and he could hear from his other friend that owns a restaurant, I pay my cook 1,000 dirhams a month. So Shadi will offer the cook 1,000 dirhams a month. But if the cook is desperate for the job, he will just take it. But Shadi, what's going to happen when that cook finds a real job with a real salary? They're going to walk out on you, right, mate? You'll have no one. So it's no point underpaying them, and it's no point overpaying them. You have to make sure you pay them at the right level. And you can do that through compensation and benefits policies. First, people don't work without pay, and unless you're a non-profit organization, it's illegal to ask people to work for you for free, and that's law. If you ask people to work for you in Europe and refuse to pay them, then you can face criminal charges and you can get sued. It's the same in Singapore, Asia, and most countries. All right, there is a social contract between the employer and the employee where the employee puts in the work and the employer rewards them. Now, whether you want to reward them in money, in cash, or in check, or in bank transfer, you still must reward them, all right? You can't say, Nurullah, I'll give you $20 McDonald's voucher every week and that's your salary. That wouldn't work, all right? You need to pay them a salary, okay, mate? All right, simple rule of HR. And I'm sure if I said to my friend, my co-host today, Mr. Golvan, your salary next month will be McDonald's vouchers. He will cut me off right now and go home because he doesn't like McDonald's. He's a vegetarian. Okay, thank you, Golvan. All right, so you can't reward people with food vouchers, okay? You can't do that. One of my last bosses was German. Do you know how he used to reward us? Every month, he took all his executive managers to a beer pub, a brewery, and we all sat around the big bar with him, and we were made to talk about work outside the office, you know, between senior managers, but the only rule was we had to drink beer. So if you worked for the CEO every month, on the 28th of every month, you had to tell your wife that I might be coming home drunk because today is compulsory beer day with my CEO. Now, for me, that was hell because once every month I'd come home drunk and my wife would threaten to kick me out. But for my boss, he saw that as motivation because he used to say to us as managers, if I don't let you taste beer from all over the world, you could never drink it. Please enjoy it. This is our social get together outside work. All right. So different people motivate employees in a different way. In Europe, I used to go out and play golf with all the board every Friday. Every Friday we went to the golf course. We all sat down for breakfast. Then we went out and played 3 hours of golf. Then we went back to the office. And this was a rule. If you were in senior management and failed attendance to the golf game, it was the same as you being absent from work. All right. So different countries have different ways of motivating people and compensating them. But at the end of the day, you still need to pay them a salary. Other things play a role too. And they include basic salary, but there's other things that they need to have as well. For example, if they get sick, they need to have medical leave. They need to have annual leave. They need to have emergency leave if they need emergency leave because their mother or father died. These are other elements other than their basic salary that you need to give them. All right. Okay, so what makes up compensation and benefits? Let's look at this simple diagram. First, it's the fixed pay, which is their basic salary. Then there's the variable pay, which could be overtime they worked. Then there's equity pay, which could be a pay based on their ability to produce. For example, if he's a director of the company as a sales director, he could get a fixed share of the profits every month, which is known as equity. Okay, so you might give him that in cash, or you might give him that by means of shares in the company. Now, not all companies give equity pay, but if you do, it's part of your compensation and benefits policy. We must provide the medical insurance or medical allowances if they get sick, and most countries in the world now do that. And you must provide for accommodation if they're coming in from overseas, all right? So if you're bringing a worker in from another country, you must make reasonable coverage for accommodation costs. If you're employing local people in your own country, you don't need to worry about accommodation, okay? But remember, if your people are working out in the desert and it's unreasonable to expect them to go home and travel for 5 hours every day, then you will be expected to provide accommodation or pay accommodation costs. Now, for most senior executives, probably Shadi or the senior manager Shadi would employ, he would probably say to them, I will give you $2,000 a month towards you finding accommodation. Now, if that's enough, fine. If you want something more expensive, you pay it out of your own pocket. All right. So some companies do that. Does everybody understand that? Okay. All right. There are several components in the overall compensation and benefits plan of an employee. There can be several ways where the benefits can be given to employees. Mostly it's given to them in terms of CTC or cash rewards and part of their gross salary. and some of the various components of compensation and benefits as the ones that we mentioned here, okay? And there's more, which I'm going to show you. Let me talk about the second factor first, and then I'll go to the list, all right? Yeah, I'll go to the list later. All right, let's go back. So the difference between the two, compensation and benefits, is that both factors are important because they motivate people. That's number one. Compensation is completely related to the money that is being paid, i.e. salary bonuses. On the other hand, the benefits are the non-monetary incentives like health benefits, medical coverage, medical insurance. It's a benefit to the employee, but it still costs you, the employer, something. So you have to budget for it. Do you understand that? Okay. All right, let's talk about this. Glassdoor, which is one of the biggest employment or recruitment websites in the world, found that 10% increase in base pay or base salary resulted in a 1.5 increase in the chance that the employee would stay at the company for their next role. So what I'm saying to you guys, if somebody's been working to you for at least 2 years and you want them to stay and not look for another job in a competitive employment market, a 10% increase in their basic salary is usually a very good guess that will keep them. Because even if they go somewhere else, it's unlikely that they will get a 10% increment, taking into account post-COVID-19 economy. Do you understand that? If it was before COVID-19, they're probably looking at 15 to 20%, but now during COVID-19, it's usually between 5 and 7. So if you offer them a 10%, usually you'll secure and retain them. This is based on recent surveys and statistics, okay? All right. The same research found that a higher company rating on Glassdoor resulted in 4% increase in the chance that someone would stay. Now, if your ex-employees go to a social website like Glassdoor and write negative comments about the company, then new employees will probably read them and start looking for a new job. So if you pay your staff and the staff have nothing to complain about, you will never have negative write-up about your company. You will not have to worry about it. But do remember that no matter where somebody works, the Glassdoor website is open all over the world. All your employee needs to do is go and write about your company. And that means anybody coming to work for your company can search your company name on Glassdoor and can read any negative feedback your employees have given. Does everybody understand that? You may want to write the name Glassdoor today and go and search. Maybe your company's already there. Okay. Okay. Compensation means you need to be part of compensation or part of paying people salaries requires or consists of 2 elements. Okay. The amount of money has to be fair. It has to be distributive and it has to be procedural. So you have to distribute fairness, which refers to the amount of compensation people expect to get for that job. You can't pay them under what the market expectation or market indicator is. And the other one is procedural fairness. Okay, so you need to make sure that the way you decide how much you pay them is based on a set procedure and fact, not assumptions. Do you understand that, everyone? Fact. So if you say to your employee, Shadi, everybody in production will get a minimum $1,500 US a month, and that is based on market, you need to be able to prove that you have a survey or you have checked the market and this is the procedure you followed, which justifies the average salary you're paying. You follow that, Shadi? And for all of you, there is tools you can use called salary surveys or pay scales, and they're available on the internet. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them are free of charge, okay? All right, benefits, again, salary is only part of the compensation. Other benefits such as pensions, 401ks in the US, stock options also help increase employee retention. Many of these benefits require a period before the employee is vested. So what we mean is, if you're going to give people a stock option plan, they would usually have to have worked for your company for 1 year. You wouldn't give a stock option plan for somebody who's only worked for you for 1 week because they haven't shown loyalty yet. So if you're going to give them shares or stock option, there's usually a mandatory requirement of either 6 months or 1 year before they become eligible for those stock options. However, with most companies, if Nurullah, example, worked for you, Shadi, from the 1st of January, but there was a 6-month moratorium on the stock options, then on the 1st of June, when his stock options came in, you would give him stock options backdating to the first day at work. However, he would not get them until he had completed the 6 months. Do you follow me? So they would have to be retrospective to his first day of employment. All right. And I mean, it's not a requirement, but it is a motivator. Some companies who only give the benefit from the time they finish the 6 months, what will happen is the employee will take the benefits and walk away because he feels that you've used him up for the first 6 months. So another way of retention is to say, once you reach the qualifying period, I will give you the benefits and backdate them to the time you started. Does everybody understand that? Okay, good. Okay, how do HR departments calculate salaries? As I said, usually they actually use the floor rate, or which is the minimum wage set by governments. In Australia, there's a minimum wage set for factory workers, for security guards, and for cleaners. If it's an industry that you are in, like manufacturing, you'll find if you go to your industry source or industry association, they may have their own industry minimum wage guides. But if you can't rely on them, the best place to rely on is what we call pay scales or salary guides. All right. If you need any help with those, you can WhatsApp me. I would be very happy to recommend a pay scale or a salary guide that's active in your country and give you a reference to it. All right. But you need to give me specific information about what the job is and what the industry is. Okay. Please don't say cook in the UAE, because cook in the UAE could be one of 5 cities in the UAE or 5 states. You have to tell me specifically Dubai, UAE, cook, Sharjah, UAE, cook, because different countries have different scales. For example, if you say executive chef in London, it's a higher rate than executive chef in Wales or Manchester or one of the suburban areas of the United Kingdom. So you have to be careful and you have to be specific. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Now, as I said, a market rate can also be defined as the going rate and is the amount people are willing to pay for a particular good or service. Employees are offering their service and fall under this definition. So in order for you to establish what the correct salary scale or market rate is, you can either refer to a pay scale or a salary scale or a salary guide from your industry. Determining whether someone fits within the salary range can be also complicated. How do you decide whether somebody is right for the right salary? It depends on the job description and the job analysis. If they meet the qualifications academically, they have the years of experience, they have proven or shown a track record working in the same job, you ask them what their last salary was with the last company, okay, and they're prepared to show you what their achievements have been, that means that you would have to go to the higher end of the salary scale you have. So if we said, Shadi, that I'm going to employ a factory manager with 1 year's experience, which would probably not get the job, or 3 years experience as a factory manager, the starting salary will be between 4,000 US and 6,000 US. And this guy applied and had 6 years experience and was able to show you that he met his KPIs with his previous employer. It would be incorrect for you to offer him the lower scale or the lower end of 4,000. What you could say is we'll start you off on 4,000, and once you finish the qualifying or the probationary period, your salary will go to the higher scale, which will be 6,000. Or the other way you can do it, you can start them at 6,000 and then make sure that you evaluate them at the end of the performance evaluation period, or at the end of the probation period. You all know what probation is. It's a trial period, okay? So every job, usually you employ someone the first 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, maximum of 6 months is probation. So during that probation period, if you find them unsuitable, you can just let them go without paying the benefits. All right, but you have to check on the laws in your country, because probation law or probation period law is dictated by certain legislation which is different. In Singapore, it's different to Hong Kong, it's different to the UAE and Australia. So if you have a probationary period, please check what your government guidelines are. If your government doesn't have guidelines, I can give you the international guidelines that you can use, and I can also provide you a template of an international employment contract that you can adjust, okay? And if you need that, you can just contact me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so remember that you take all this into consideration. So when you write the job description and put that you need a degree holder, preferably a master's degree, but the minimum should be a bachelor, and you get a master's degree holder, make sure you're prepared to pay the higher end of the scale, all right? And make sure don't over inflate the qualifications, because that will cost you more. If you can get somebody with a degree, a bachelor's degree, do not say masters, because the minute you write the word masters, you have to pay a higher salary. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? All right, we've covered that. Let's just summarize this. Compensation and benefits versus total rewards. Everybody look at this. So direct compensation is the money that you pay them every month or every week. Does everybody understand that? That is direct compensation. Direct compensation. It's the pay packet they get every week or every month. How many of you here get paid weekly or monthly? Who gets paid monthly? Can you wave your hand? Okay. Who gets paid weekly? Anyone? Weekly? No? Fortnightly? No? Monthly? Excellent. All right. Okay. Trexie, I think you get paid monthly as well. Is that right, Trexie? Wave your hand to me, Trexie. Are you there, Trexie? Wave your hand, Trexie. I can't hear you. Trixie, wave your hand. That's it. Good girl. Excellent. Are you a nurse, Trixie? Are you wearing a nurse uniform? No? Okay. All right. Okay. So basically, if you get paid a monthly salary, usually the amount of salary you receive at the end of each month is your direct compensation. All right. The other total rewards could be internal culture or indirect compensation. And they could be management recognition awards, work titles, a promotion by title, but not salary. Okay, it could be stock options, stock balances. All of these could be what we call part of the total rewards that you offer someone. Total reward is a total compensation that you're giving someone. And remember, we said the direct compensation is cash. The indirect or the internal elements that are offered between different companies and different by each company, which are internal company culture, they also lay a cost on the employer because you have to pay for those benefits. They also form a part of the total compensation package. Does everybody understand what I mean by total compensation? Yes? Okay. All right. So what should a compensation and benefits package look like? There is no one answer for that, as the package for a grocery store clerk will have little in common with the CEO's package. However, here are some standard items that companies often include in a job offer. You will need to adjust for your organization local laws and employee level. Salary, overtime pay, bonuses and commissions, which are discretionary and non-discretionary, retirement benefits, if any, for some companies. Once an employee has exceeded 6 years, when they retire, you give them 1 month pay for every year of service, all right? Once they reach 23 years, that is the maximum. Some companies go over to 25 years. My former company, a shipping company, would pay up to 30 years After 30 years, there was a cap. So if you worked for 30 years, you would get 30 months salary as a golden handshake. Now, if the company really liked you, they would usually add to it. However, the cap was 30 months. I know some companies like Google and Facebook, for their very senior management, they can go up to 36 months, okay? All right. Saudi Aramco, for some of its very high-end jobs, head of HR, head of production, they give them up to 48 months, okay? So it depends on the company, the seniority of the position, and the market that you operate in. Does everybody understand that? Yes? Okay. Again, stock option, open stock options or restricted stock options. Does everybody know what we mean by restricted stock? Restricted stock means they have to work for your company for a minimum number of years before they can sell that stock, where normal stock options is, that means you give them the stock and they can buy or sell it. Sorry, they could sell it or deal with it at any time they like. Most companies usually would put restricted stock. And what that means is they must hold it for a certain number of years and they cannot sell it in certain circumstances, and it can only be sold to certain parties. All right. So most companies today would offer general stock options. A very few industries, especially the tech industry and probably the oil and gas industry, would offer what we call restricted stock options. Okay. Does anybody have any questions so far? Does everybody understand that? Okay. All right. Compensation and benefits package should also include vacation, profit sharing, merit pay, sign-on bonuses if you're trying to attract people to work for you, relocation bonuses if you're bringing them in from overseas, housing, school, and meal reimbursement depending on the package and the country you're in, healthcare benefits including medical, dental, and optical or vision. All right. So now that we've dealt with employment contract, contract of service, contract for service, we've spoken about job analysis, job description, job competencies. We've spoken about compensating the employees, all right, financially, and motivating them to work for us. The next element that you all want to know about today briefly is how do you measure that employee's performance? How do you know, Shadi, that Eliu, who's prepared to work for you on charity free of charge, is good enough to work for you? You need to do a performance appraisal. All right. Now, there's a difference between performance appraisal and performance management. Be careful, ladies, because I know you all think it's the same. Okay. It's not the same. Wake up. Marisol, performance appraisal is different to performance management. Does everybody understand that? Nazgul, you're shaking your head, Nazgul. There is a difference, Nazgul, between performance appraisal and performance management. If any of you need a sample of a performance appraisal document, even though I am not going to go through it today, and providing you're one of our students, I'm happy to send you a sample by PDF, all right? But please, before you use it, do not break any laws. Check with me if you have to change anything, okay? All right. Performance appraisal is a document or a process used to evaluate the employee's current and or past performance relative to his or her performance standards, right? So Shadi says that if I work for him as a machine operator, a production operator, I need to produce so many pieces a day on that production machine. I need to make sure that I service my machine and reduce the breakdown to no more than 1 hour per month, just hypothetically. So that will become the standard against which I will be measured at the end of my probationary period. And at the end of every probation period, we should do what we call a performance evaluation, which is called marked as end of probation, end of probation. A performance evaluation can be annually, half yearly, quarterly, or for some circumstances be at the end of probation, all right? Now, if an employee is not performing well, you can do a performance appraisal today, and part of the plan, you could say to the employee, I'm going to give you another chance because you have not met your KPIs. We'll repeat this appraisal in 1 month's time. However, if you still can't perform, we may not be able to confirm your employment. Do you understand that, everyone? Performance appraisal is a tool. Most commonly, we do it annually. For some jobs, we do it twice a year. And in some circumstances where an employee doesn't perform, you could do it monthly, quarterly, or even as required, okay? But you should always do this appraisal at the end of the probation period, and the duration of the appraisal would be noted, or the period of appraisal would be noted, probation period. And that would be marked as one that decides whether that employee is good enough to continue and be confirmed after the trial or the probation period. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Performance management is the process employers use to make sure employees are working towards organization goals. So remember what you asked me before, Shadi, about KPIs? Setting KPIs is part of the performance management process. So everybody in the company should have documented KPIs. They are documented as part of the performance management process and system, with which you should have a policy. Now, when you measure the KPIs, you discuss those on the performance appraisal during the performance appraisal session. So the KPIs are set as part or documented in the performance management system, and the KPIs are measured against that employee. You measure his actual real versus the KPI benchmark. You do that during the performance appraisal. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? So KPIs are part of the performance management system. KPIs are usually measured during the performance appraisal process. Okay? Now, what you need to do that, Shadi, is you need to make sure you have proper HR analytics and metrics. All right? Because Shadi, you cannot set KPIs and then appraise people for them if you don't have correct record of whether they achieved those goals or not. Do you understand what I mean, Shadi? Do you understand what I mean, Nurullah? So if you set somebody a KPI, Nurullah or Nazgul, and you say the KPI is for this person to sell $20 million worth of packages this month, you need to keep accurate record of every transaction they make. There needs to be a metric system. So just before performance appraisal, HR would say to the finance manager, give me a list of all the transactions this person has completed so I can measure whether he meets that KPI. So unless you have a HR analytics or measurement tracking system that records data, which is sourced from finance, production, etc., you cannot realistically measure KPIs that you do not have a record of. Do you understand that, Shadi? Does everybody understand that? Please do not get yourself into trouble as some companies in the US did recently. What they did is they went to performance appraisal, but they did not have any fixed metrics for measuring whether the employee had achieved those KPIs or not. And this matter was taken to court in the US. The Court of Appeal held that the employer had wronged the employee by generalizing that the employee had not reached the goals he expected, because the employer could not prove beyond reasonable doubt based on statistical fact that the employee had not reached those goals, because the employer had stated that we had no record kept. We just did it by observation. Do you understand that? Be very careful. If you are operating in Asia, the Middle East, or a European country, and you say to someone you did not meet your KPIs, for the love of God, you better have accurate data, statistical information, and record of what the KPI was and what they've achieved. Do you understand that, everyone? Now, you could say during the performance appraisal, if they've achieved 50% of the key performance indicator, they would get 3 points. If they've achieved 80%, they would get 4 points. If they've achieved More than 80%, you give them the full 5 points. For some companies, when we measure key performance indicators, if the employee has not achieved 65% or 70%, that KPI is said to be 0. He failed. Do you understand that? So KPI must achieve at least 75% or higher. Anything below that is a failure, but you must be able to correctly, mathematically, or statistically evaluate whether that employee had achieved that. Does everybody understand that? Now, guys, I know that one session about HR is not enough, but I cannot cover all these disciplines in detail. What I'd like you to do is my colleague is going to give you my WhatsApp number. I want you, as the 300 students that are here today, is to drop me a one-line WhatsApp. Wally, I want to learn more about performance management. Wally, I want to learn more about job evaluation. Wally, I want to learn more about job grading or salary scales, okay? Does everybody understand that? But give me one specific element of HR. And what I will do over the next 3 months, I will plan a 2-hour session that specializes in each of those disciplines. And by that means, for example, performance appraisal, I can actually show you a performance appraisal form, give you a template, and tell you how to use it. All right? Remember, ladies and gentlemen, human resources is not about managing objects. For the love of God, companies are only successful as a result of the people who work for them. If you run a company, if you are a business owner, and you do not understand the importance of the human capital element in your company, you are in the wrong business. Ladies and gentlemen, unless you are Amazon, unless you can justify having robotic arms in your 30 warehouses globally, and all these robots pick the stock and drop it in the packer's basket, and the packer packs it, and she or he is human being. Unless you can justify the need for robotics that can solve your problem, you can never eliminate human capital, because the robots need someone to program them. The robots will break down. You need to have backup. Human capital is your most important asset. Human capital is the company's most valuable asset. Do you all understand that? What is your company's most valuable asset? No, Shadi, it's not the factory. It's not your Rolls Royce. It's not the brick and mortar. The most important asset the company has are the people that work for it. Because Shadi could have a factory that's 200 acres. He could have $30 million worth of machinery. But if he doesn't have people to run that goddamn machinery, Shadi's business is going to go bankrupt and he will not be able to pay for the machinery. Do you understand that, Shadi? Do you agree with me, Shadi? Do you understand that, Nazgul? Where are you? Where are you hiding? Do you understand that, ma'am? Do you understand what I said? Wave your hand. Good. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. Let me talk to Madam Nazgul for a moment, please. Forgive me, everybody. This lady's a regular student. Good afternoon, Nazgul. How are you today, ma'am? Hello, how are you?
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good. Have
Fine,
you
thank you. How are you?
have you learned anything from me today, Nazgul? Have I opened your eyes?
Oh, yes, of course, Mr. Wally.
Okay, great.
You know, today's lesson, it was very interesting and full of information. And some of, you know, information was for me like magical story as for benefits and compensation, because I never before met with this some benefits and compensations.
Well, you know, let me just share in general. Let me tell everybody that Madam Nazgul is part of a family business. It's a very successful family business, and it's very fast growing. And what I'm saying to you, Madam Nazgul, is this: maybe you should start thinking of the word compensation and benefits, and whether you apply it to your staff in general or you apply it in a very small way, Nazgul, it will improve productivity for you. It's just something to think about.
Oh, yeah, I just compare my last working place and my conditions. And today it's really interesting for me to know about, and some benefits, because we have some rules, common rules.
Yeah.
For example, I will take government workers.
Yeah.
They have common rules and laws. Just work weekly from 9 to 6 p.m. and lunchtime, this one, and that's it. Your salary is the same, and that's it, no more.
Is there any rules to say? But is there any rules to say that if you work 2 hours overtime, how much they'll pay you?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Then you see, if you try to do that in Germany or in France or in the UAE or in Singapore, the government will take you to court because you're being unfair to the employee. So in other parts of the world, there's very strict guidelines on how many hours an employee can work. In Singapore, a full-time employee in an office should be working a minimum of 44 hours a week and no more than 72 hours a week maximum, including overtime. All right. So in Singapore, there's very strict laws. In Australia, it's the same, 45 hours, maximum 73 hours. So in different countries, these laws are being introduced. So it's very good for you to be aware of those, Nazgul. And I hope you've learned something today, because remember, this session it's not a lecture. It's simply an information session where you gain general knowledge and ideas. And that's all it's supposed to be.
And thank you so much, Mr. Wally. Of
You're
course,
welcome, ma'am.
I agree that, some benefits and compensations, of course, if you're a government worker, it depends from budget of a country.
Yeah.
And that's why you can just compare where,
Nazgul, I understand where you are and where you come from, but it also appears whether that government is sharing most of it with its people or keeping it for itself. But that's another question. Let's talk about that at another session, young lady. But I don't want to get into that. But if we look at countries like India and, let's go to Malaysia, etc. You can see from the experiences, ma'am, that over the years, that governments in some of these countries have a habit of the compensation they offer for certain level of people within government is different to the rest of the world. But, thank God, I must say that a lot of countries are now changing. And hopefully your country will come to that one day. Maybe your government one day will ask me to come over and teach them how to change it. I don't know, maybe. I don't know. But it's something that the world is changing to, Nazgul, but I understand where you're coming from. I totally do. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Does anybody else want to ask me any questions? Nazgul has already had her chance. There's 300 students here today. I want to hear from all of you. Who wants to talk to me? Let's start with Wendy Francisco. Wendy's been jumping around for the last 10 minutes. I'm not sure whether she's hungry or whether she's having coffee. Hello, Wendy. How are you today, Wendy? Open your microphone, lazy Wendy. Talk to me, young lady. Hi, Wendy. Are you there, Wendy? No, she doesn't want to open her microphone. Okay, are you there? No, okay, I'll come back to you. All right, April Lynn Aquino. Hello, April, how are you today? Hi, April. Hi, April.
Sir. Hi, sir, good evening.
I'm very good, thank you. How are you today?
I'm fine, sir.
Have you learned anything from me today, April?
Yes, sir, of course.
All right, tell me, is it gonna help you at all?
Yes, sir.
Great. April, I look forward to seeing you at my next session. And please send me your ideas about what other elements of HR you'd like to spend listening to for 2 hours. And I will try to deliver it or have one of my colleagues who has equal experience deliver it. But April, it's so good to see you here tonight. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Good afternoon.
May I ask a question, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, April.
In regards of compensation and benefits,
yes.
How can I redeem my employer-employee share in government remittances if I finally resign?
Okay, well, it depends first.
And I noticed
it depends.
after a month.
Okay, no, hold on. Hold on, April. First,
yes,
you have to check your contract of employment. Does it have any employee bonus shares or share scheme in your contract of employment?
Beg your pardon, sir?
First, you need to check your contract of employment. Does your contract of employment talk about share or share bonus schemes in your contract of employment?
What if I have not yet received any contract from the employer.
No, you can't ask for it unless it's documented in contract.
Okay, sir.
So have you started working for this employer?
Before, sir, after a month,
All right. What happened? Are you still there or have you already left?
I already left.
You have no ground The only ground you have in your country, ma'am, which is the Philippines, is if the employer failed to pay you the basic salary, which was through a verbal contract. However, if you're going to go into share share allotments and share bonus schemes, the court would hold that you need to have it in writing, and it was by mutual agreement. And I don't think it would be if you left after 1 month, ma'am.
Okay,
But
sir.
April, my advice to any of you, you never start work until you get a contract, all right? Never. You don't
Yes.
work for anyone for 1 day without a written contract, all right?
Yes, sir.
And even if they say it's a hotel, you need to try for 7 days. You do 7 days trial. At the end of the 7 days, if they want you, they give you a contract, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure. You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you. I have another question. Rahul, is it? Sorry, Rahanul Islam. Good evening, sir. Would you like to talk to me?
Hi, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Rahanul. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you for joining BizTalk 43. How can I help you?
I have a question about job analysis part.
Yes, sir.
Does job analysis have any sort of specific method by which I can exactly find out the core competencies and job JDs?
Okay, Rahanul, are you working for a private organization or a government organization?
Private organization.
All right. Well, if they don't have their own job description or competency matrix or job analysis tool, no, you would have to start from scratch, okay? I mean, I can guide you through it, Rahanul, but unless you know where to go and have a look, or unless you know how to do it, you're going to be digging into a deep hole. Can I ask you what sorts of jobs you want to document? Are they technical jobs or clerical jobs?
Both. Actually, we have in our organization we have technical person and non-technical person. Both.
All right. Okay. Well, Rahanul, I can give you a sample of a non-technical job in HR and finance, and maybe one in logistics, and I can give you maybe one technical job as an engineer. But they're only samples. But then you would have to go and develop yours based on the same matrix. But Rahanul, if this is something that you're really keen on, and there's others here that want to do it, send me a message. And what we can do is we can plan a lesson specialized in developing a job description where we will go through a sample job analysis, and I will teach you how to write a job description. I'm happy to do that. If there's enough participants here that want that, I will do that for you. Would that help you?
Yes, it would be helpful.
All right. And if you want to drop me a message by WhatsApp and say to me, can you share with me basic samples? Give me your email. I can send you some PDF material, but please do remember it is copyright, so you can use it as a guide, but you should not just photocopy it and use it with your company name. All right.
Right. I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
You're welcome. So I look forward to seeing you at BizTalk 44. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anybody else would like to? It's my pleasure, sir. I have another hand up here. I'll come to you in a minute, Farm. There's somebody before you. Mr. Peter Conte, good evening, sir. Hello, Peter. Hi, Peter. How are you today?
Good evening.
How can I help you today?
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Peter.
fine.
I'm motivated and I can't wait to finish and go home to a steak dinner, which could be another 2 hours, but I'm doing fine, mate. How have you enjoyed my session tonight?
It's been a long time.
Well, I haven't seen you for 2 or 3 weeks, I think.
Talking with you.
It's been about 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, I know. What have you learned from me tonight, Peter? Have you learned anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to share. You know, I have my own business, and I normally share my experience with the rest of the class.
Yeah.
Two things. One, you are talking about hiring too many people to do a particular role while a single person can do it.
Yeah, go on.
In recent days, what my competent enough to work in the kitchen after doing the housekeeping job. You know, I run a very small hotel, and she normally completes maybe around 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And then after that, she's not doing anything. So what I did was to like test her and see if she can work in the kitchen. And I tried it and it worked out.
Yeah,
And
that's
I've
fine.
just released the staff who was working in the kitchen, one of the staff working in the kitchen. And then she is filling the role. And I'm saving almost $100 now.
Well, Peter,
because
but hold on. But Peter, that's what we call
Yes.
cross-skilling or cross-training. And that is something all companies should do. But be careful.
Exactly.
But be careful. If she's a housekeeper and you want to cook African food for your African guests, there's certain kitchen jobs she can do and can't do. But if there is
I know.
parts of kitchen that she can do, that's what we call cross-training, cross-deployment, teamwork. And that is something that I very much encourage to all companies.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Actually, she's doing exactly what she's capable of doing.
Good,
because I asked for feedback from the customers, and they are sending back very good feedback for the new role that she's occupying.
And she's happy, right? She's happy.
Yes,
She
she's
enjoys
happy.
what she's
And-
doing.
Yes, and that has increased her salary by 25%. So what I did was to take some percentage of the previous salary of the person filling that role and increase her salary so that she can be best compensated for that.
But Peter, you're a good boss, because some other bosses in your country would make her do 2 jobs and keep her on the same salary. So you understand the basic rule of compensation, benefit, or reward. You're on the right track, Peter. You're on the right track.
Exactly. And the other thing I want to share with my colleagues is that when we are talking about job descriptions, there are 2. Normally, I do categorize my job description in two halves. One is the person description, and the other one is the job specification.
Well, they should be one document.
No, I'm talking, it's a single document, but when you are writing the job description, you have to bear in mind that you have the person description, the person specification, and then you have the job specification.
Okay,
so
we call it,
sometimes
we call it the man and the job. So firstly, you're talking about the man or the person or what you want in that person, then the job itself. Yeah, that's exactly what we said.
Exactly. Yeah. So normally what most people do is that they mix up the person specification to be the job specification. And when you do that,
no, you can't.
Yeah,
the person has to fit the job. The job should never fit the person. All right. Let me clarify that. That's a very important point. When we write a job description, we don't write it for one person. We write the job as it is, then we define the person who can fill the job. But we don't take Peter and say, Peter is sitting in front of me. Now this job has to be perfect for Peter. We don't do that. The job is built for the person who meets the requirements. The person is not the person we build the job for, all right? We don't build the job for a person. We build the job as a job, all right? The person has to fit the job. The job should not fit the person.
The person,
all right?
exactly.
All right, go on. Go on, Peter. Great stuff. Anything else, mate?
Yeah, and we are talking about compensation. Like for me, my staff, they have separate meal, because there is this rule that I always maintain with my staff. I have a restaurant in my hotel.
Yeah.
I normally don't encourage them to eat the food that we sell to the customers.
Okay.
So they prepare their own food. If we are eating the African dish today, we sell out continental dish to our customers. We should not eat the continental dish.
Right.
Yeah, so they have their own meal that they prepare for themselves.
Great. That's what most restaurant chains do around the world. The food they serve their customers is different to what they cook for their employees. That is a very good policy because it retains food costs. Yes.
Exactly. So
Peter,
these
you're
are
doing
just a few things.
No, you're doing very well, Peter. I look forward to seeing you at next BizTalk, mate. BizTalk 44 or 45 promise to be exciting, but please give me some feedback by WhatsApp. about any subjects that you'd like me to go into more detail. And I thank you for joining me today, Peter. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next person, Fanti Mock. Hello, Fanti. Would you like to unmute your microphone? We have to move very quickly, Fanti. I have another commitment. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for your time today.
It's my pleasure, ma'am.
Yeah, I want to ask you, like in Singapore, if the worker work on public holiday, but the company don't pay them like 1.2 or 1.5, but they only pay them 1 day compensation off. So is it against the law, Singapore law?
Well, it depends on your employment agreement. It depends on your employment contract. What's the what is the job? What sort of job is it? It depends on the job. The actual employer must pay you the day public holiday. He must pay 1 day in lieu of public holiday, depending on whether it's served weekday or weekend. And if he doesn't pay public holiday, only when it's agreeable between the employer and the employee that he can offer you an extra day off, all right? But if he doesn't offer you a day off in lieu, he must pay you the value of that day at the rate which is dictated by contract. Does that answer your question, Pham? Are you there, Pham? I can't hear you, ma'am. Can you speak to me? Can you unmute your microphone? I can't hear you, Pham.
Okay. Yeah, but
Okay.
the problem, but the problem in the employment contract, they don't state like if you work on a public.
Okay, well then it's a very easy way. You go to the website of Ministry of Manpower Singapore, MOM, and look up public holidays, and it's very clearly defined. The employer must pay the worker who worked a public holiday. If you work a public holiday, he must compensate you in lieu of the public holiday or offer you another day off in lieu of the public holiday. So he either pays or he gives you a day off in lieu and adds it to your leave. But he cannot ignore both. He must do it. It's law. And you can go to www.mom.gov.sg and you will find it under public holidays, all right? Or if you'd like to WhatsApp me, Pham, I can take a screenshot and send it to you, all right? You're welcome. Okay, does anybody else here want to talk to me? I'm running against the clock, guys. I have another class to teach, but I'll take 2 or 3 more hands. Okay, Jasmine, would you like to talk to me? Hi, Jasmine. Anybody else wants to talk to me? Go ahead. Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Have you learned anything from me today, Jasmine? I can't hear you, Jasmine. You're muted. Hello, Jasmine. Unmute your microphone. Your microphone is, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I can hear you now. How are you?
Okay, sir, I'm fine, thank you. Actually, after attending your section, I go back almost 10 years back.
Yes.
I salon at Singapore before that, so I'm a self-employed there. So it is now, right now I'm teaching in the kindergarten at International IB school.
Yes.
So I am really confused now. Like,
why?
What happening my before business, and now right now I'm working in that international school. So I don't know. I really go back to 10 years back after attending your section. So that is, I don't know what to do now. So
well, it's a very clear way. You need to move forward. You might need to make a decision, Jasmine. I think I spoke to you about this recently. If you are really serious about moving forward, Jasmine, you need to do it. I'm happy to guide you on setting goals, developing a business plan, and helping you make a decision. But young lady, the longer you sit in that chair and procrastinate.
I have two salons there. One is the Lucky Plaza at Singapore, and another is Vivo City. So after that, we have some problem. We moved to Bangladesh, and I attend this school is an international school.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, Jasmine, let me suggest something. You may want to WhatsApp me, and I'm happy to call you and go through it with you, because this is about your business. I'm happy to talk to you and help you. Would that help?
Another thing is I'll try just know your number, just know you're given, but it is not in the WhatsApp. So what I can do?
Well, it does. It does. +65 822 5 2220. It does work, because I've received messages from other students. Mr. Govind, can you send Jasmine my number with +65 in a personal message through Zoom, please? Thank you.
Yes,
All right,
okay.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
And sir, I need to move now. I need to leave because I'm having online classes for my
You're
students.
welcome. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Good evening.
Do you
Ladies
want
and
to take any pictures for the?
no, it's fine. You're welcome. Thank you. It's already recorded. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here today. Again, my name is Wally Rauda. I am a seasoned professional in HR. I have been in the HR business for 38 years. I have been Senior Vice President, Executive Vice President, and Chief People Officer for some of the biggest companies in the world. I have been an academic. I have lectured in human resource management, strategic management, business continuity management, and leadership for the last 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure talking to you tonight. And please, I welcome you all to drop me a message by email or by WhatsApp at any time. Unfortunately, I can't go into detail on these academic principles in 2 hours. The idea of these sessions is simply to open your mind and get you thinking. But if you want to learn the discipline in full and go through the processes, we need to have a full session on that process. As I said to you, I give you all 270 of you who are here today. You have all week. Drop me a WhatsApp and give me one topic that you'd like me to teach for 3 hours or 2 hours. And I promise you over the coming 2 months, I will schedule those and I will go ahead and teach them. From me to all of you everywhere, I thank you everybody for being here today. God bless you all. Thank you for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you at BizTalk 44, 45, 46, and so on. I love you all. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. Goodbye, Shadi. Goodbye, Nurala. Goodbye, Max. Goodbye, April. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Aliu. Thank you, Iro. Thank you, Peter Contact. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here today. It's been my pleasure.